I think one of the things that I'm trying to tap into is this, notion that advisors helping other advisors because they're not really competing with each other, to be honest. Like there's so much money to manage and so many households to manage in the US. Like these advisors aren't competing with each other. So if you're not competing, then why not leverage each other? And I go to a lot of conferences and a lot of the recurring theme I get is man, me as an advisor or wealth manager talking to another wealth manager or advisor, like those are some of the best conversations I have because as an owner and operator, I don't have all the answers, but somebody might have gone through the same thing as me and could be very helpful to have a conversation with that person. And I'm trying to tap into that with referrals and marketplace. For inflows, one of the challenges I had was I would have a lot of service providers want to get on the platform, but because they weren't an RIA or they didn't work for an RIA, they weren't able to get on the platform. Or else that would break the whole, exclusive RIA, network mission that we're going for. And so we came up with a solution, which was let's create a marketplace where the providers get visibility on the app but they are not on the app themselves. So we created the marketplace so that the providers can have almost like storefronts where in their store they can describe what they offer and they can list what products and solutions that they have for advisors. And there's a way for advisors to reach out to those providers by clicking like a contact me button. Welcome everybody to Inside the Flows episode 16. I'm Iyassu and your host, and I've got special guest with me, Juan Vallejo. How you doing, Juan?
Hey, yes, thanks for having me. Doing pretty well today.
Yeah, welcome back. It's Friday, June 19. It's Juneteenth. So
Juneteenth, yeah, happy
a lot of
Juneteenth.
companies have holidays today.
That's very true. That's right. I found out actually, Tesla doesn't have Juneteenth off.
Well, I mean, those guys are, they're working their butts off, right?
They would have been working anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tesla's like one of the only companies I know that's like people enjoy going to work during like the holidays. They're like,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
got a
yeah.
mission.
Or you'll find them there on weekends at the office too.
When your boss is sleeping on the line, you've got an interesting work culture.
Yeah. It means you got to be sleeping there, right next to them on the line too.
Yeah. So we haven't had you back in a while. Just kind of thinking about like current events and what you've been up to and whatnot. But the Knicks won the finals. Mayor Mamdani gave a rousing speech on Thursday during the parade. There were some festivities in New York that was really funny to watch on YouTube. Were you following the celebration at all?
I was following the celebration, not so much the sports. I just didn't sit down and not even the FIFA Cup I watched. So, but yeah, it's an exciting time to be a sports fan for sure. And I felt the energy at least. I felt a little FOMO just having a normal week, or just working, getting things done. But yeah, no, it's a short week, so I'm happy.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up the World Cup because there is the World Cup craze. I mean, it was a little controversial on the run up to the World Cup, but I think everybody's kind of in bliss now that the games are going and everyone's favorite teams and countries are playing. On the social media front, it's there's like two kind of major themes going on, and I don't know if you see this on your like Instagram or TikToks or whatnot, but like the one of them is like there's all these ladies falling in love with like the Nigerian goalkeeper, like they're just like making TikToks about how like gorgeous he is, and it comes across my feed a lot, so it's pretty hilarious. And then like the other trend, Juan, is all these foreigners experiencing America for the first time.
Yes,
There's this
definitely seen
really
this.
funny one. You gotta check it out. There's this really funny one where there's like this Japanese guy goes to a barbecue place in Texas and he he gets this gigantic ribs and he like puts barbecue sauce on it and takes like a humongous bite and the guys next to him are cracking up because they're looking at him take it like they called it a shark bite. I never heard of this, but like they're like, yeah, he took a shark bite. And the Japanese guy's like, he's like eating it like full mouth. He's just like, amazing.
I saw more stories also about ranch. Like people, they come here, they get obsessed with the ranch. So TSA had to put up an announcement saying, "Please do not drink the ranch directly."
That's hilarious. What was
It's
it that
good.
there was like?
No, I was gonna say like these are like the things we take for granted that we're getting like highlighted right now. Just how good we have it with our ranch and barbecue ribs this week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To speak about taking for granted, there was another one where I don't know if he was Italian or French, but the guy's name was Fabio. And he's like his buddy's recording him at a restaurant where they give free refills for sodas. And Fabio's like, I can have more like Diet Coke. He's like, he drinks the full Diet Coke. He's like, I want another one. And the guy and his buddy is just like, Fabio, no. So
Oh
there's a lot of
man,
fun things that come along with these sporting events. And it's summertime, the weather's good, and the feel good vibes are coming back. So
yeah, it's good
I
times.
it's good times. It is. So, moving towards our just kind of headlines for the week, not much really happened other than, from a I would say from a corporate business perspective, not much happened. There was from like geopolitical events. The U.S. had got into a memorandum of understanding with Iran, and there's like a 14-point deal, and it was really like a deal to kind of pause everything and step back and try to come to an agreement. So the MOU is in effect now, and it's kind of shaky. But what that means is that the Strait of Hormuz is now basically de-escalated, and ships can start passing through without worrying about getting a missile to the face. But in the corporate matters, though, nothing really big has been happening other than everybody's watching SpaceX and how it's doing after the IPO. And for folks who weren't paying attention last week, SpaceX IPO'd at, I think it was like $2.5 trillion, making Elon Musk the first trillionaire in the world, which, I, it's hard to comprehend $1 billion in your pocket, but a trillion, yeah, just amazing. And so everyone's eyes are on SpaceX and how it's doing, and what it's going to do for the next 6 months. And there are some other indices that haven't greenlit SpaceX. So I think after 6 months with S&P, they'll be able to get into the S&P 500. And so that will bring in a lot more capital too. So right now it's only trading on the Nasdaq and whatnot. So SpaceX, there's I think 4,000 millionaires minted in that IPO. Elon's a trillionaire. It's kind of wild times when you think about it, Juan.
It's very well timed. In fact, I read somewhere this was the biggest single day gain for a single person's net worth. I think Elon's net worth went from, yeah, essentially like, it's like something like 500 billion in one day. Crazy numbers. So it's to the point where I think right now he's almost at 1.2 trillion, right? So even if if the 1 trillion went away, he's still, contending for the richest person in the world title anyway. So it is a wild number to think about.
Yeah, and for folks on more of the retail side that are listeners, this is all paper money. So sorry, this is all on paper. That's a better way of phrasing it. So Elon Musk doesn't have $1.2 trillion in cash in the bank. It's his equity exposure to companies that are valued at multiples of trillions, and the piece that he owns is worth makes him a trillionaire. So if he were to actually be a trillionaire, he would need to liquidate or sell off his company stock, which he kind of can't do because that would tank the SpaceX, that would tank Tesla, like that would like if shareholders knew Elon was selling a bunch of his stock, they also would sell too, because they've tied the success of the companies to him personally. So we call that key man risk, and he understands that very clearly. So he's not technically cash trillionaire, but on paper he is definitely a trillionaire,
Oh
and
yeah.
comes with a lot of benefits.
It does. And it's a good point you brought up, because it's easy to hear the number and you conflate it with, okay, well, now he can go out and buy most of the Nasdaq 100 companies if he wanted to. But no, at the end of the day, it is a catch-22. It's a bit of a genie problem where his wealth disappears if he tries to materialize it, right? If he cashes out, he loses the ability to further cash out, kind of cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And you know Sometimes when folks get older and they have equity exposure, they start to look for income and, they're, growth is great, right? But at some point you're just like, yeah, I need cash. So until, Elon, I mean, he's not that old, but like, let's just say Elon was like 80 years old, right? He probably wants to materialize that wealth and he's probably start looking for kind of dividend paying equity exposure. So, this is totally hypothetical. This is not financial advice. So this is all purely educational. I'm going to the hypothetical realm. Elon could start saying like, okay, well, let's have SpaceX and Tesla start issuing dividends. But that would also come with risks to the valuation of the stock because there are investors who have mandates that look for growth and they need to be in equity only kind of stocks where they're not paying a dividend out because they want that money to go back into the business to grow it more. So those investors would leave, and but then they would be the investors looking for income would come in, and that would kind of buoy the stock. So yeah, it's really interesting when you think about paper money and real money. There's different ways to look at it and different strategies and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Elon's a trillionaire.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
can't believe we have a trillionaire.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. No matter how you look at it, it's still a giant potential sitting there, and it's a bigger giant potential than any of the other people in the billionaires list right now, for example.
Yeah, and I guess the space economy is real. Like if you're creating trillionaires on like SpaceX, that means the space economy is like it's a big deal, right? So
I mean, you have the chance to reach the entire world, for example, with that market. You have customers all over the world for your internet, satellite internet, for example. You have customers that need launches all over the world as well. So yeah, I think it's a market that only stands to grow further with time.
yeah, I think the way folks should. Well, I'll explain how I view it. I think the way I look at it is there's just kind of different companies at different scales that service different customers. So if you're like a small startup and let's just say you own a laundry mat store, your customers are like your neighborhood, right? And those customers have a certain amount of money they're willing to spend on your services. But then, like, let's just say you're an auto manufacturer. Well, your reach has now gone from maybe a little town or a city to multi-states, right? And so now you're reaching, a huge customer base, which has a very, very different kind of spending capabilities. And then, once you go, let's just say you go from like a national auto manufacturer to like a global one, right? Now you're dealing with, customers across the world, again, different spending capabilities. But then you go up, like what's a bigger customer than people around the world? It's governments. And those governments as customers have a boatload of money to spend. And that's where SpaceX and the whole space economy is going. And that's why you can get to these crazy, $1 trillion valuations because your customer is a government that they don't base their spending on paychecks. They base it on GDP. So
Exactly. Exactly.
when a
Yeah.
government
And
decides, oh, we're going to spend 5% of our GDP on space, then companies like SpaceX become very, very valuable.
exactly. And yeah, you're right. Like, with a company like that, you can offer products specifically aimed at governments. And the reasoning for the spend now becomes, oh, it's a national security, it's in the interest of national security to spend money to get that service, like Starshield, for example. And so at that point you become, like an indispensable part of the country's suppliers.
Uh, in other news, the Fed had its meeting this week, and correct me if I'm wrong, Juan. They decided to keep interest rates where they're at, which most folks didn't. I'd say, folks, that was a surprise. A lot of
Yeah,
people
it
thought interest rates were going down with the new Fed chair.
it did rattle the market a little. You did see some numbers tumble a bit, which to be fair, I think it's a reasonable middle ground to keep them the same, considering that I was expecting them to go up actually. In fact, I think if Jerome Powell was still there, I think rates maybe could have gone up. It's just, you saw the numbers, right? You saw the essentially the consumer price index. You saw PPI. Under any other, I guess, I don't know, under any other year, let's say, or timeline, we could have probably seen maybe not a significant rate hike, but some sort of rate hike, some sort of rollback on the announced, rate decreases that people were expecting already.
Yeah. So 3.5 to 3.7, Kevin Walsh is like, yeah, he made that announcement, or it was announced. But I think it was a good reminder that, for folks who don't quite understand the Federal Reserve, it's a committee decision. It's not like Kevin Walsh can go in and be, I mean, he has a vote, but he can't just go in and be like, all right, guys, we're dropping the interest rates. And, you know, and if anyone disagrees, I'm putting you in a headlock, right? So, they felt that, inflation is still not where they want it to be at in order to lower interest rates. Jobs are, still growing, particularly in the healthcare. The funny thing is about this like healthcare job thing is when I was in college way back in my day, like everybody and their mother was becoming like a nursing major. And like I remember all the professors saying like healthcare is going to be really big in about 20 years when the baby boomers start getting old and they need to be taken care of. And it's funny because like I feel like it's materializing now. Like I feel look at all these like jobs reports, and it's like healthcare is booming everything, right? I mean, in addition to like AI, but like these whole like all these folks are getting to the healthcare space, and then all these baby boomers are getting older, and it's like wow, like I wonder how much of this great wealth transfer is not going to go to the next generation, and it's just going to go to like old folks' homes and nursing bills.
Yeah, I mean, you might see exactly. You might see like pockets of that wealth begin to unevenly hit certain sectors of the economy first, which makes sense. Where it's needed, that's where it drains into. So we're seeing healthcare be one of those first pockets, I think.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to tell all our baby boomer elders, whether that's your parents or uncles and aunts. It's like good reminder, like tell them like be nice to nurses because they might be taking care of you for the last parts of your life.
Oh yes, yeah, that's sort of the part of life we don't like to think about at this point. Just
Yeah.
kind of maybe someday creeps up on you, and that's it. You still think you're young at heart.
I've got some like nursing friends that like they tell me like at the end of their shifts like what they do, and it's basically like they just they turn to their bed and just face plop on it, and just like they don't want to do anything or talk to anybody. I'm like, oh my god, what did you like? What did you go through in your shift? Like that's So just remember, so the baby boomers, the older generation, you're gonna need them. So it's time to remember to be nice to them like now.
Oh yes, just build good graces.
All right, so let's move on to our special topic today, Juan. And it's an update on inflows, and we made a lot of progress since the last time we spoke. I think there have been like the last time we spoke, we were telling the audience how we were using AI to build on the platform, and maybe I think we should probably give the audience just kind of a little update on how we're using AI in our workflows, if it's changed a little, or if it's yeah, if we've pulled off on some parts of it or whatnot. So I'll start and just let me know if anything comes to mind, Juan, because we're kind of to the audience members, we're kind of freestyling this part because we do want to give you an update, like a product update, but we don't want to be too product pushy on this podcast. So from my perspective, Juan has made quite the tweaks to our AI agentic assistant. We call her Libby, and he's made her much more user friendly to someone who's not technical, like myself. And he's created like work boards that summarize the work that I do with the assistants, because I will actually work with the assistant without Juan. And then when things get really really hard, I tell the assistant, hey, summarize this issue, summarize what we've done, and send it to Juan for either an approval on the next fix or ask him for a fix. And correct me if I'm wrong, Juan, does it actually like send you a direct message?
It does, yeah. I get an actual message, personal, where it says, "Hey, excuse me, Juan. Yas asked me to summarize this for you. Can you help us here and here?" And it feels, you kind of forget it's not human when you first read that message.
Is it like are those messages like helpful, like to catch you up? I mean,
Well,
including
yeah, they are.
the work board that you created.
Yeah, in fact, those messages are good because they give immediate context, and I go, okay, yeah, maybe the issue is somewhere in this realm. The board is also helpful because some of it's like a Kanban board, right? So some of the cards have tons of comments in them because the assistant basically summarizes periodically where things are with each project, and you just have at a glance view. And so some of those projects are so complex that they have at this point more than a couple hundred comments. So it's hard to keep up sometimes where the project's going. They just are moving so fast. So what I do is you can ask the assistant, and I just go, in a new comment like, "Hey, please summarize the summary of this card." It says a meta summary, and it actually does it really well. And I go, "Great, I'm caught up with this project now." So yeah, it's really helpful.
That's awesome. And so with the tweaks that Juan was able to make with the assistant, yeah, the way I would describe those tweaks is you have the assistant, but then you have the model that powers that assistant, so the brain. And we've been switching from GPT 5.5 and Claude Opus. There was a point where we had access to Claude's Fable 5, which is a version of their Mythos, their most advanced model, but I don't think we were able to use it, right? I think they shut it down pretty quickly, right? Maybe 3 days after it was released.
Yeah, it was literally 3 days after release, and yeah, we're back to 4.8. Opus 4.8 at that point.
Yeah, and so I was able to use Fable 5, with the desktop version of Claude, and I was able to troubleshoot some parts of the app that were pretty sophisticated. And with Fable 5, it raised a lot of, flags. Like, I was very, very impressed with it. Flags that, you know, the other models would have just glanced over and just, kind of just kept going without paying attention to it. And we were able to patch some things with the Fable 5, but then yeah, I think it was like the US government actually shut it down. They were like, "Yeah, this is a security risk," and foreign actors can use this Fable 5 to do some bad things, so turn it off. And then they turned it off, and I was pretty bummed. But
Yeah,
4.8 is Opus is pretty good too. So
it's pretty good. We can still do, if you prompt it in just the right way, you can actually get pretty good results even compared to what Fable 5 was giving. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but this is the one guy that ruined Fable 5 for everybody. He was some guy that not some guy. Like he's a pretty famous security researcher. He likes to break things and tinker with like anything that's kind of closed off, see how he can open it up. So it took him 3 days basically to get past all of the safeguards, safety rails that Mythos 5 had in place. 'Cause, in case you don't know, Mythos 5 is actually the same thing as Fable 5. It's the same model, but Fable 5 has all of these additional guards, all these additional guardrails. And so anytime that you prompt Fable 5 and it detects that you're trying to ask for something you're not supposed to, or bypass any policy, it actually reroutes your request to Opus instead of Mythos. And so that was sort of a huge way they could guard against someone trying to jailbreak everything out there. This is a huge oversimplification, by the way. I might be missing a few details, but that's sort of the setup they had. And that's why Fable 5 had a different name, but it was still Mythos. And so, this person goes in, he tries to jailbreak it, of course, tries to get past that security safety net that they added for Fable 5. And he was able to do it. He was able to, very creatively craft messages with, uncommon characters, let's say. He was able to, yeah, just sort of social engineer the model, and it worked. He was able to actually, get Fable 5 to route the message to Mythos and get responses that kind of violated that policy, that security harness they had on top.
financial advisors, I think. I think what folks so there's kind of this notion, Juan, that AI is going to take everybody's jobs, and a lot of people in the wealth management space are afraid that they're going to lose their jobs. So I think it was like State Farm last week was like, we're changing our compensation model for our sales agents, and our these guys, what they do is they sell insurance policies, and the reason why is because they're using AI to basically reflect what Progressive is doing, which Progressive Insurance went like deep into artificial intelligence as a way to replace their sales force. And so a lot of folks are very afraid of getting they're having their jobs being taken away by artificial intelligence. And I think in the wealth management space, I don't think that's going to be the case for them, because the currency that they use is relationships and trust. Those are the two main currencies. And when you make a certain amount of money as an individual, at some point you don't want to talk to some software. You want to talk to a person. And so I think that's kind of the pathway in this new AI era for the wealth managers and financial advisors and planners out there, is that you know AI is not going to replace your job, but you better be proficient in AI. And I think there's going to be a future where advisors and wealth managers, I don't know what they're going to use AI for exactly. They're the ones who are going to come up with that answer, but you do need to know how to use Claude. You do need to know how to use, Gemini and ChatGPT in your own workflow. And so I'm just going to like think like creatively, Juan. When let's just say you're in a single family office and you're, managing like a very famous family's, wealth or whatnot. Well, how do you use AI to create better relationships with that family? Maybe you use AI to create a new website that interacts with the, 400 family members versus you taking a phone call one day every day out of the year, to engage with those family members. Maybe use AI to create custom solutions for your CRM system, right? Where you're creating your own like Salesforce basically. Like I don't know what that future is. Somebody in the wealth management side is going to say like I don't have to rely on a software provider. I can use AI to build my own and have that same service. I don't know what that is, whether it's taxes or investment management. But I think that's the future, and why this conversation with you and I matters to the advisors and wealth managers is that you should start learning how to use AI. Like and learning how to sorry, not you shouldn't learn how to use it. You should already know how to use AI. You should learn how to build with AI, because that's what's going to be a very defensive mechanism to your business.
Yeah, in fact, I think your point actually, you know, highlights more that the traditional software consulting space is, all the way at risk. That part is gone, because ideally those were the, that was the space you kind of went to, you outsourced to get things done quickly, to build, to, you need a new portal, a new CRM, a new website. You went there, right? And that space essentially, if it hasn't adapted, if there's parts of that space that have not embraced building with AI, building quickly, providing value beyond just what you know it used to be, then yeah, your point basically highlights that it's gone. Anybody that learns how to build with AI can now do what they used to do and more. You can have a full-blown portal, and you made it in one day, let's say. So if anything, I think AI has created this great equalizer for you know making the field more approachable, making you know productionization of ideas more accessible, by an even greater part of the population, by tons of new businesses, let's say. It's almost like, when I don't know, making music at home became so feasible that now you had this whole influx of new artists, and the music space only grew because of it. You had this new wealth of diversity of songs, music. Same thing here. Now you now have, like, I don't think this is a bad thing, right? I think it's a great thing that we've equalized access to creating, virtual products, creating virtual portals, let's say, because now we're going to get this giant influx of new ideas, of all these needs that have been sitting there and no one has thought to create for those ideas, and needs are now going to surface. And new products will come out, and we'll see more productivity because of it, sure, but we'll also see new platforms. We'll see new ways of doing things. So yeah, I think I've seen this movie before, so to speak, with the music space, and yeah, I think it only goes up from here.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the whole software as a barrier to entry for businesses is going away, or it's getting really, really, really thin. Really, really thin. So, like, software is not going to be a barrier anymore. You just plug into an AI model, say, here's my repo, build it. And to your point, that means you're unlocking a lot of entrepreneurial um, spirit by taking out one barrier to entry, like taking a huge barrier to entry. Just imagine how many ideas were out there, probably really good ideas that couldn't get off the ground because it was unaffordable to hire a software engineer. Or like Google has all of the best software engineers, right? So it's like all that creative talent is kind of monopolized by these really big technology companies. Well, guess what? Like, all that stuff's being, like you said, equalized. And so that barrier entry goes away. And so now folks with really good ideas can test them out on the market.
Exactly. And this also means that in the world of finance, right? You're no longer bound to an Excel spreadsheet either to visualize data, to keep records, to extrapolate out patterns, right? You now have the power to visualize in new ways, creating new ways. Your data's not trapped in a grid anymore with cells. So, so it's exciting because of that.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, those entry level jobs. The way you described that, you just reminded me of like the entry level jobs at the sell side shops. So you think these like investment bankers when they first join like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or whatnot, like I'm pretty sure they spend the first like 3 months just you know, it's almost like boot camp. Like this is how you build a model, like in an Excel spreadsheet. Like they take pride in not using the mouse. Like they just their only keyboard with building models. It's so funny, but why do you need that anymore? You don't. It's you just tell, your AI, your LLM, like, here's what I need, build it, do it in Excel format.
Basically, or yeah, you build a model, way beyond the bounds of what a spreadsheet could have allowed that model to do, to visualize, to calculate. So yeah, it's for sure very liberating.
Yeah. So if you're an advisor or wealth manager out there, start using, Claude or ChatGPT. Like just get a $20 subscription and start testing it out and try to do more than just use the chatbot. We are turning the page and we're going to talk about some updates to Inflows. You and I have been working on upgrading the app visually and new features and whatnot. I think, uh, one of the updates that I'm really excited about is we did a new update to the navigation bar. And I think I was watching the Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, and they were talking about, Apple Glass getting updated and whatnot. And I was looking at our UI and I was like, oh my God, we're so far behind on where other apps are. Like, well, let's just update the liquid glass. And you and I did that. And it was not that hard. I mean, with AI, it was not hard at all to get that going. And I don't know, like I think the users are gonna like this new update that's coming up. Yeah, it's just like like I don't know. I felt like ours was pretty good for like maybe a 2018 app, right? Like I don't want to knock it. Like our designer who designed it, originally the navigation bar, he did a really good job. It looked really good. But you got to keep updating, right? Or else you don't want to stay stagnant, or else folks are like, all right, there's nothing going on in this app, especially from the visual standpoint. The other part that's really exciting that we're releasing soon is the exchange. So the exchange is basically two new features. One is the referrals. So I've gone around to enough conferences and I've been on enough forums with advisors and wealth managers to understand that referrals is a really, really big part of the business in the investment advisory space, but it's very much unspoken. And so, going on a lot of these forums there where you just see advisors saying, "Hey, does anybody have like a lawyer that deals with divorce?" Or, "Hey, I've got a client that's, wants, X, Y, and Z from a financial advisor. I can't service them because they're in a different state. Would anybody be willing to take them on?" Or, I'm at my cap. I have like 150 households and I can't take on this advisor. Does anyone have capacity to take them on? And so those conversations, man, you'd be shocked, Juan, they happen all the time. But there's no kind of efficient way to kind of capture those referrals, at least that I've seen. Efficient, structured, visually appealing. And so, we created referrals, and referrals is its own feed in the app where a user, particularly the financial advisory user, can go in, create a post, and it could say, it's structured so that you can create tags that indicate what kind of referral you're looking for. So whether it's a client referral or a center of influence referral, and for folks who don't know what a center of influence referral is, it's usually like a CPA, somebody that's embedded in the lives of the clients, and maybe you're looking for one, or maybe you're endorsing one. You can do that now on the app. You can also create a referral post for asset managers, like, hey, I need an asset manager that is, manages ETFs or direct indexing and has like, LATAM exposure. And you can put that on there, and the other advisors can respond. They can either comment, or they can express interest for maybe a client referral, or they can recommend somebody, and it will send you to a direct message. So the conversation still stays private, but the person who put up the post will get a message saying, "Hey, somebody's responding to your referral." So I viewed it as like a kind of like a bringing us into, like you said, the modern era with referrals in a visually appealing, efficient, private when it needs to be private, public when it needs to be public way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a it's a novel take on, I guess a much present need. And you said we have this. It's rolled out right now, or is it available right now for everybody?
Not yet. It is, all we have to do is press. So for folks that don't know, when you roll out an update, it's got to get reviewed by the Google Store and the Apple Store. So it's approved right now by both, and all we have to do is just press one button, and it gets distributed to all users. So we just have to press a button.
All right, it's like a ceremonial
Should we do
ceremonial.
it? Should we just do it
Yeah,
now?
why not? Why not? We can do it live.
All right. Let's see. Where is it at? So let me just show you guys what it looks like. The button. All right. So this is the button. And I'm going to hit release this version, and boom, it's done. It's released.
Amazing.
On. No, it's
Easy,
that
easy peasy.
easy. Yeah, it's that easy. Users, like, the hard part is just building up to that. It's, getting the plan, getting, Juan to say like, okay, hey, this works, this makes sense. And then executing on the plan, having the agents like code it all, and having Juan review the code, and then the Q&A, that's where I come in, and I battle test it like for really long, deep sessions. And then we release it. So it's as simple as that.
I think I think you've highlighted a lot of a lot of different parts of our ecosystem here, because it is sort of an ecosystem that's been created around influence, around creating and maintaining new features for it, to the point where it almost feels like we've built this machine that builds the app essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's all in service of making life easier, and mistakes less prone to happen. And so I guess you build enough around that, enough scaffolding, you end up with this whole separate kind of factory kind of scaffolding that just kind of runs the show now, with ideally some input from the human, but not all the input that it used to take.
We only talked about referrals, but there was also another feature that just went along with that release, Juan, which was the Inflows Marketplace. And for folks that have never used a marketplace before, just think of it as like a bazaar where a bunch of vendors, show up and they sell their products to you. For inflows, one of the challenges I had was I would have a lot of service providers want to get on the platform, but because they weren't an RIA or they didn't work for an RIA, they weren't able to get on the platform. Or else that would break the whole, exclusive RIA, network mission that we're going for. And so we came up with a solution, which was let's create a marketplace where the providers get visibility on the app, but they are not on the app themselves. So we created the marketplace so that the providers can have almost like storefronts where in their store they can describe what they offer and they can list what products and solutions that they have for advisors. And there's a way for advisors to reach out to those providers by clicking like a contact me button, and it sends warm leads to those providers, including their contact information. It also includes a rating system, so advisors who really like those firms can give them 5 stars and write a review for them, and the providers can respond. And all of this is done outside, or at least for the providers, they're outside the Inflows ecosystem. They have their own separate portal that they use to communicate, and they cannot see the feeds, they can't see the referrals, they can't see the investor circles or anything like that. So we kept them separate, but also figured out a way to bring them in because a lot of advisors, sometimes they need a product or a solution, and they just don't know where to go to find one. And building on the whole like bazaar marketplace idea, now they can. And we have it's funny, we're actually launching with about 5 providers on the marketplace, and I hope that grows to thousands, to be honest. But these 5 providers, I'm very happy that they decided to have a space on the Inflows Marketplace to have visibility in front of our advisors, and I give them the first mover advantage. And I think it's going to work out well for them. But now advisors have a place on the Inflows app to you know explore what kind of services are out there to help build their practices.
Yeah. So it's honestly, I think you described it as it's like a matching service, a matching app, and in addition to that, it's a little app store basically. So yeah, you start with 5 apps, and then hopefully we get exponential sign-ons after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that also just went out when we hit that button. If you are on the Inflows app and you're also in the audience, go ahead and update your app. You'll see it. And I'm looking forward to seeing advisors, finding solutions for their practice on the app, and also writing reviews, because those reviews are really helpful for other advisors. I think one of the things that I'm trying to tap into is this, notion that advisors helping other advisors, because they're not really competing with each other, to be honest. Like there's so much money to manage and so many households to manage in the US. Like these advisors aren't competing with each other. So if you're not competing, then why not leverage each other? And I go to a lot of conferences, and a lot of the recurring theme I get is, man, me as an advisor, wealth manager, talking to another wealth manager or advisor, like those are some of the best conversations I have, because as an owner and operator, I don't have all the answers, but somebody might have gone through the same thing as me, and could be very helpful to have a conversation with that person. And I'm trying to tap into that with referrals and marketplace, and hopefully users have a good, enjoyable experience with it.
Made with a lot of care and effort for sure.
Little TLC. So that's the inflows update. We talked a little bit about AI. We talked a little bit about markets. But I always want to ask my favorite question to the special guest, Juan. What are you looking forward to next week?
It's a good question. In fact, I forgot about this question, so you caught me. You caught me with it.
Well, I'll give you some time to think about it. Next week, I'm going to the US SIF conference, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Get to see a lot of my colleagues, and we get to be in DC, and it's our annual conference where we all get together, and some folks that I've seen that I've worked with in the past in my old firm, and some new folks. I'm actually looking forward to the advisor day track, which I'm a part of. I'm on a panel speaking where basically there's a lot of like continuing education sessions that are happening that are really helpful for advisors. But yeah, USF is next week, and it's going to be a really good time. And I'll probably be offline for that week because I'll be a little busy. But that's what I'm looking forward to next week.
It's a pretty good week coming up for sure. I think we we are working on more, features for our users, more projects, and we'll get to those later. But I am excited to continue, the work on those. So, yeah, I mean, I think to bring it, to bring it fully onto the topic of new features. Yeah, I think I guess while you're out, I kind of take the reins and push those forward, and yeah, which is what we've sort of been doing. That's a good dynamic where kind of like pick up where we left off, and then you come back and like, great, now we're like, we've proven something out, we've proven a new concept out or idea, and then we just go from there. So yeah, more improvements to the platform, to the machine that builds the app. So I'm excited to work on that.
Nice. If you are a financial advisor, wealth manager, asset manager, please join us on Inflows. You can find us at inflows.com. You can find us on the App Store, Google's, or Apple's. Let's keep the conversation going. Please try out the new updates, the new features. I think you'll find them very useful. And we will catch you all in actually a couple weeks. I'll be out next week for the conference. So the following week, we'll have another show. Thanks for joining us, Juan, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks for having me.